Hey, welcome back to the Gilbertson Aero Factory. Today is Wednesday, the 18th of December, 2024. It's been 2 days since I last worked on the airplane. I know that in the last video I said, yeah, I want to get an early start tomorrow. And then yesterday I didn't get a start at all. I was in the home office working the whole day, and I probably should have been doing the same today, but it is later in the day. It's about 5 p.m. I have spent the entire day, and you probably can't tell by looking at it, but I've spent the entire day trying to make this shop workable again because I was tripping all over myself and it was bothering me. So it's not perfect, but it's much better. So the one thing you might be able to tell is that back corner back there, I was storing a bunch of stuff that doesn't get used very often. So I cleared all that out, moved that stuff out to the trailer, made a new workable space back there so the motorcycles are scooted for. Anyways, that's what I did. I also got my package from Wire Care, my wire conduit, I guess, for plumbing inside the wings, and not surprisingly, I didn't get enough stuff. I got enough conduit, but I didn't get as many T-fittings and end fittings as I need, because as it turns out, the airplane that I'm building has two wings. So anyways, I don't think I'm going to get much done today. I need to, and this is important, pay attention here. I need to do the countersinking, but I misspoke in the last video. Somebody called me out on it, and I didn't even realize what I'd said. I'm not countersinking the skins. You shouldn't either. You countersink the spar so that you don't have to dimple the piano hinge. You countersink the spar, which is a nice thick material. You don't countersink the skin, dimple the skin. So that means a countersink that is deep enough to accept a dimpled skin. I'm going to do a little playing around setting it up when we were doing something similar, working on the skins for the tank and whatnot. Those were like go 7 thousandths past flush, but this is a very thin skin, like 20 thousandths, maybe 25 thousandths. So anyways, enough talking about that. Let's just, build an airplane as we do. Okay.
Okay, so episode 133 of this build, a lot of tedious, mundane, repetitive processes today, which is a lot of building this airframe anyways, but not necessarily stuff at this point that requires much description. So let's talk about the generalities. I updated, and by updated, I mean I finally put anything on my EAA build log, and that was basically spending a few hours going through and creating entries for each of the videos that I have made, because to reiterate, with the exception of the first few days of this thing, I make a separate video for every single build session. This is how I log my build. But I went ahead and put it on there. If you were to go look at it, you won't see anything that you don't see here, because I basically just cut and pasted video descriptions. Well, there is one thing that is different that you'll see on there, and that is the build time totals, because it tallies it all up. And I think that coming into today, I was somewhere in the 560 hours range to date. So who knows how long this whole thing is going to take in terms of actual build time. I don't think when I was tallying up my time, I didn't break out or account for research time. I'm sure there are a few days in there where I've got an hour, 2 or 3 of head scratching and searching, the internet for answers. But for the most part, research is not necessarily counted in how I've logged my build time. So it's really drilling, dimpling, deburring, breaking things, making them again, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. As far as what's happening in the video here, I need to go through and countersink those spars, which means that I need to remove that skin which I've done. And then I, per the suggestions on the plans, Clico the hinges back on just because it gives a little bit more. It gives something for the pilot of the countersink bit to get into. A little bit more material there. These spars are not super heavy duty. They have a fair amount of flex in them. And so, as you'll see while I'm doing this, I tend to agonize over countersinks to begin with. And so this doesn't make it any better. I think the very first thing in this whole build that involved any countersinking was the reinforcement angles for the horizontal stabilizer, and those are nice, thick, solid pieces of aluminum. And and even then, I think I agonized over it. But when we obviously on the wings to this point, if you look to the left and you see those long runs of the main spars, I think it was my final tally was 1,120 countersinks that were put into those spars, and those are countersinks that are made to accept the dimpled skin, and that's exactly what we're doing to these spars. But again, those ones are very beefy. These ones are flexible. So what is the source of my anxiety about these countersinks? It's not really that big of a deal. I mean, the whole idea here is just really to try to make a smoother, faster airplane. I mean, you do want the dimpled skin to fit nicely into those countersinks, but what you don't want to do is countersink them too deeply so that it's sloppy in there. And so, as is the theme lately, I can make anything take a long time. And this process of countersinking these spars, I spent, 3.7 hours total in the shop today. But at least 2/3 of that was just the maybe not, but close to just the countersinking part. So you see that I've made it's hard to see, but I've made a little coupon, excuse me, a little test batch. So I drilled a number 40 hole and then dimpled it appropriately. And I use that. And that's also, that little coupon is 25 thousandths, which is the same thickness as the skin that is going to be here on these flaps. So countersink and then check the fit. And as I recall is it section 5 of the plans that talks about build techniques and whatnot, you want that dimple to fit in there, but it's not necessarily supposed to be a completely flush fit where the skin fits, where the countersink is deep and wide enough that dimple will just drop in there and the whole skin will fit flush on the flange of the spar. A little bit, like a few thousandths or whatever gap there is fine, because that means that if in fact the dimple is fitting down into that countersink, you know that there's good contact there. Whereas if the skin lays nice and flat against, man, I'm having trouble talking today. If the skin sits nice and completely flat on the web of that spar, it could be that is countersunk too much, that when the dimple drops in, it's not necessarily even making contact with the countersink, which you don't want. So, anywho, I finished up on the far end there. That's the left side. Finished up that one. Decided I want to take a little break from countersinking. So I went ahead and got into fitting up the top skin. Obviously, I have to put the bottom skin on first. I have to reinsert all the shims on those end pieces. And in those earlier clips, you may have seen those little shims laying there on the table, to just sort of recap, that left spar needed the little shims that would go on the ends of the ribs where they mount to that so-called aft spar, the curled up section on the trailing edge of the bottom skin. Nearest to us, this is the right flap. That one didn't require any shims. That was a nice fit to begin with. So, yeah, interesting. Just manufacturing on different days. Like I said before, there are a lot of sort of complicated and tight bends in these skins, both the top and the bottom skins for these flaps. So that's probably just that process probably lends to very slight, and I mean 20 thousandths. Those shims I put in the other one were, I think a couple of them were 20 thousandths thickness and one's 25 thousandths. So these are small variations. Anyways, and with all of those very tight and complicated bends, means that getting the getting the blue vinyl off of these top skins is really a pain in the butt. Yeah, so if I look at the 3.7 hours I spent in the shop last night, probably the 0.7, all of it, the 42 minutes was just removing the blue vinyl. So happy to have that done on both of them. So yeah, this is just getting this all fitted. Then I'll move on to, in the foreground, the right flap and do all of that countersinking and get that all fitted up. So let's talk about other stuff. What did I do in the shop today? There are some changes that are definitely not very obvious. I don't think that many of you spend much time staring at what else is kind of laying around in the shop there. You can, you might be able to tell that, yeah, the little service cart tool chest that I use has moved and the motorcycles have moved a little bit, but that whole back bay over there, if you kind of go around the left-hand corner there's a deep spot back there that was filled full of stuff that was just taking up space and wasn't serving me, and there's a lot of room to work there. So I spent 4 hours maybe before this work session getting all of this stuff in order. So, my trailer's parked out the back of the property, and I moved a bunch of stuff out there that I don't need regularly. And then you might also notice the railings on the wall back there have thinned out quite a bit. So all of the yard work implements have been moved to a deck box on the back porch and cleaned up that space a little bit. There's some work that's going to happen over there with regard to the electrical in this garage that has become a workshop. But when this house was built not very long ago, all of the outlets in this garage are on a 15 amp circuit, and that really becomes a problem. Almost all of the lighting in here, in fact, no, let's see. Yeah, almost all the lighting in here runs on this same circuit. I've got the TV, I've got the compressor, occasionally, running the bandsaw, whatever. Usually I'm fine, but during the winter, if I have like an infrared space heater in here, as soon as that compressor kicks on, it trips a breaker. 15 amps is kind of silly for, people, when they're building these things, have to expect that somebody's going to do something more in the garage than just flip on a light. Anyways, and then you might have noticed in the intro, in that back corner table, I set up a little workstation back there. I moved the other rolling tool chest around the corner there that where the motorcycles are. But on that table back there, there's a welder, and the welder will run on 110 or 240, 120, 240. I have not fired it up yet. I don't have, I told you I have 15 amp. So yeah, you can probably guess I don't have 240 service in the garage. But I don't even know if I could run that thing 120 without tripping the breaker just right off the bat. So that's one thing that has to be done in here is I need to punch through that wall. If you look where the extension cord is hanging up there, straight back, right on the other side of the wall outside, that is where the main breaker box is. At some point, I'm going to be punching through and putting a sub panel in here, and I think rewiring all of these outlets in here, putting them all on a 30 amp breaker and adding 240. So that's one of the many projects. And I have so many other projects, including those motorcycles over there and the little John boat that I just brought back from Washington and the 40-year-old outboard that goes to it, that I'm even considering doing an additional channel for all the other stuff that I break and try to fix. So, okay. And now back to the airplane factory here. In the back left, back there, you see there is a big drafting table that wasn't there. That was my dad's drafting table, and that is a favorite piece of our house when I was growing up as a kid. And, this time last year when I was at home, he was getting ready to finally actually retire and asked me if I wanted to take that drafting table, or really what he asked me was there anything in his office that I wanted? And I said, if you don't want that draft, and he said, absolutely. So, yeah, he's had that thing since college. And so when he passed earlier this summer, that was one of the things I brought back. It is big. It takes up a lot of space, but it also provides a lot of space for plans and whatnot. So that's what that thing is. In the on the right side, over by the door there, that tool table, you might notice that I think you know that I upgraded my drill press, and now the smaller one is gone, and the bandsaw is also gone because one of the things I brought back from Washington was a much larger freestanding bandsaw, and that's back in the other bay back there. And the smaller bandsaw and that smaller drill press, those are going to go to a buddy who will get good use out of them for projects that he's got going on that don't involve airplanes or motorcycles. So that is the progress in the workshop so far. Over there where you see me right now, just having that space back to move and some sort of general utility space, some flexible space is very nice. So this is a good start. It will be even better in the future, but at least now I feel like I can breathe and get stuff done in here. I'm excited to get through this stage more and more, and you can't see it from right here, but more and more these long set of big steel shelves are freeing up space. You can't see it because the camera's mounted to it looking away from there. But once these flaps are built and the ailerons are done, I've got a couple more things that I need to do before I can mount those to the wings, and those things are backing up to the fiasco with the aileron brackets that mount right in the middle of the wings and those really long rivets. And that's what I got the Cherry Max rivets and the rivet gauge for. So we'll get past this business of putting these flaps together, and then we'll take care of those things. And actually, in the on the left corner or left side of the screen, you see a couple of orange tags on the wings there, the aft spar of the wing. Those are a couple of other rivet holes that need attention. Those attach the flap brace to the rear spar and the reinforcement. And there are some holes, a couple holes, and I'm sure I mentioned it before, that just rivets that had been installed and removed at least 2 times, probably more. and I need to upsize those holes, and that's what those little tags are about. So little business like that has to be done, and those things can be mounted up on the wings, not necessarily permanently, but free up some shelf space and the opportunity to start working on some other things. You can see that no plumbing has been done inside those wings. I've got the stuff to do that. I need to make the actuators, the torque tubes, whatnot, for the ailerons and get those mounted in there. The package from Fly LEDs or Fly LEDs, however you want to say it, that will be arriving tomorrow, so I can start doing some smaller, more detailed work, which should be a lot of fun, and getting the lights all put together. And of course, I still have to remove the tanks and deal with the couple of suspiciously identical leaks in the two tanks and get that done. So I'll try to get the flaps done before I leave on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I'll only be gone for a week and a half, and then I can get back at it. So yeah, finishing up here, you can see that I've got the top skins fitted on both, which means that in the next work session, I can start working on fabricating, I think, a couple of brackets, and then maybe even get into some riveting. We'll see. Thanks for being here. I know this is a longer one. Like, subscribe, notifications, all that stuff that people say. We'll see you later. Bye.